said one day his son said to him, "Daddy, I can't wait to marry so that I can love my wife the way you love mommy." Now, this son is currently like 11, and he said this like maybe more than 2 years ago. So he wasn't even 10. Are you telling me premarital counseling has not started? It has started.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of UNWALLED. Today we'll be discussing a very interesting topic. When I mean very interesting. The topic we are discussing today is about premarital counseling.
Sure.
So here we go. I know you've been married for about 2 years.
Jesus, don't reduce my class. I'm going on 4, sir.
4?
I'm going on 4. You're using me to give yourself reason not to marry.
They play?
They play.
They play? Okay, fine. So, before your wedding, I am sure you had some myths or misconceptions about this topic, premarital counseling. So, can you share with us what you had?
I think maybe one misconception or myth or something I expected was that every meeting will be profound. Like every meeting, they are going to be telling you deep truths about marriage.
This kind of Ibrahim.
You know, like you just be in a state of shock. But not all the meetings were not like that. You know, some were things that look like common sense. But having been married, you know that it was important that you learned them. Yeah. And then I think another one was thinking that when you go for premarital counseling, they will just talk to your spouse or your fiance. This is what I mean. Everybody feels like I'm perfect. Talk to the person. Like let him learn or let her learn. And then you get there and then they give you some buzz that you know that this one is for me. So I think just maybe those two. I don't remember any others. So
with that, now that you've gone through the whole process and some of those myths have been squashed, so can you share with us, ideally, what is this premarital counseling about? Hey, okay, hold on. Before you go, hold on.
Okay.
Before you go.
Yes, sir.
Is this premarital counseling even biblical? Is it scriptural?
So, I don't know if there's any place in the Bible that says thou shalt do premarital counseling before. However, there are verses in the Bible that point to the importance of premarital counseling. So premarital counseling is basically counseling before you get married. But on a deeper scale, it's submitting yourself. And when we're preparing for this topic, I think that was something that somebody said that was really important for me, because a lot of people, especially in churches these days, that say you must do counseling before they marry. Those couples are usually not submitted to the counselors. They're just doing it to fulfill all righteousness. I don't believe that is premarital counseling. But I think that real premarital counseling is submitting yourself to the mentorship, the guidance, the counsel of a godly couple who you believe are doing marriage the right way, and you want them to guide you, to mentor you, to counsel you in that path. So that's what I think premarital counseling is before you get married. And about whether it's biblical, like I said, I'm yet to find a scripture that like so directly says thou shalt be premaritally counseled. However, we have scriptures like in Titus that says older women should teach the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be submissive to their husbands, to work in their home, to be pure, to live wisely. Those are counsels, if I can put it that way. We also have scriptures that say in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. So that means that the Bible does advocate for counsel. And it says that when you get counseling, there is a level of safety that comes with it. That means that if I submit myself to premarital counseling, there is a level of safety that I will have in my marriage. There's another scripture again in Proverbs that says, where there is strife, there is pride, but wisdom is found in those who take advice. Those who take counsel. So it means that you are wise. And if we want to stretch it a little bit,
tell us something.
I think that also Solomon did some. I know. That might raise more questions than answers.
Oh, yes.
But I mean, if you read Proverbs, there was a lot of, my son, this about the adulterous woman. Don't follow her. And then the ultimate Proverbs 31, where a son is writing what his mother told him about the kind of wife to marry. That means he wasn't married. So that is some form of premarital counseling. So with these few verses of mine, I believe I'll be able to convince you.
I've been convinced, my dear.
That the Bible is pro-marital counseling.
Interestingly, I've never seen it in this light. Never.
Wow.
Never.
So now you
That's because I see it many times, like maybe this forms part of my misconceptions. Okay? I see it's like just like the way church discipline is. You understand? Just the way church discipline is. That's the way I see it. Do you understand? And then just the way there's an emphasis on offering. Every Sunday you go to church, they'll collect offering, you get. So that's the way I see this premarital thing. Like, if you're getting married, you must do it. It's just like a program you must pass through. You get. And then I've heard several stories. Like in this short life, I've heard several stories. Stories like this premarital counseling thing. Some people will say there's manual inside it. So me, I don't know whether maybe marriage is like there's one certificate they give you, or maybe there's speech and prize they do. After my due gets like, so I hear these things and I just wonder, so why build a manual for something that's everlasting? Because marriage is still dead to us part.
Yeah, but like, I mean, in fact, let me even start from the ideal plan, I believe, is that your premarital counselors should be your parents. I strongly believe that is God's ideal.
Okay.
That I learned. So premarital counseling is not so I believe strongly that the ideal of God, like Solomon did, is that you teach your children, part of what you're instructing them should involve family and marriage, so that they are watching their parents live and they have an idea. They are learning about marriage. They are learning. I love the testimonies of Evangelist Mike Bamloy's children. How, at least I listened to the sons, both of them talk about how they met their wives. And in both of them, they talked about how they submitted to their mentors, their spiritual father, who happens to also be their biological father. And for me, that became a prayer for me, that my children don't have to go outside to look for marriage counselors. However, God wastes nothing. And so with the fall of my family and all that is going on, he has now raised the church and ministers in the church. He has now called certain people into that ministry so that void is filled. And that's why some churches now institutionalize premarital counseling, come up with certain manuals. I don't think there's anything wrong with those manuals. They are a guide. The truth is, no manual can tell you everything you will face in your marriage, no matter how detailed it is. But if it's giving you biblical principles for marriage, it would enable you to have the wisdom to be able to face whatever comes. So it might not tell you that on the 7th year of your marriage, there will be famine, but it will give you principles of contentment, of communication, of trust that will hold you in those times. So I don't think there's anything wrong with those manuals as long as they are biblical. They lay down principles and they point you back to God, so that when you are stuck in the manuals, you go back, to God. But I think the parents should ideally.
So if I get you right, if I get you correctly, premarital counseling is more practical than it's literal, and there's everything to do with observation and imitation. Is that correct?
I think so. In fact, you've put it in a better way than I actually thought about it.
Please give me my chocolate.
Take your flowers. That's what they're saying these days. Give me my flowers. That's what I don't like flowers. Give me my pounded yam.
All right.
What I mean. Who's asking?
Okay, chocolate.
like you said, I don't think there's anything wrong with the theoretical part of it. I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting my child down to say, this is how to take care of a woman. This is how to be a husband. This is how to, that's what the Bible does essentially when Paul says love, submit, and all of that. But I think that also it is stronger to see it. So it's a blend of both. It's not only one. And that's why parental premarital becomes stronger because you basically live it. And so when it's not parental, I also believe that people should intentionally choose people that they have access to. I don't believe that you should just submit yourself to premarital. Like, you can glean from different people, read different books, materials, watch videos and everything. But I think that it's also important to have a couple that you have access to, that you believe are living godly married life, to see how they live. Like you said, imitation, beholding. You know what the Bible says? As we behold him, we become like there is something about looking at the right picture that it teaches you even subconsciously. So premarital counseling, I believe, should be a counseling that has the theoretical, the you shall, you shouldn't, this is how, but it should also have the practical. It should have the questioning. It should have questions like, okay, so this is about you, this about you. What do you think about this? It should incorporate all of these things. And then you should be able to see an example in the couple that you are, being counseled by.
So after convincing me with all of this,
I'm not trying to
because in all honesty, this sounds more convincing.
Okay.
And well, it's trashing a whole lot of thoughts in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But if I may ask,
yes, sir.
What are the ingredients, or what should a premarital counseling entail? And again,
Yashim, please don't be a lecturer.
No.
You like all those 1A, I.
No, these are just questions.
Okay,
because I feel this is me trying to pour out everything from the inside. Okay. So again, on that, I want to ask, how long do you think premarital counseling should take? That is because I've listened to a message from Mensa Otabil. Okay. And he made mention of something like this. He said, people spend about 8 to 10 years in medical school just to become medical doctors and be the best in that profession. Likewise, engineers, likewise, architects, likewise, teachers, they get certified in all areas. In fact, programmers, computer guys. Yeah. In fact, even Yahoo boys, lately I learned that they even get certification.
Really?
Do you understand? Now, if all of these people will spend this time to become the best in this field, why is it that marriage counseling doesn't take this long and people are not deliberate to spend this time to learn about marriage before going into it? So how long is an ideal premarital counseling supposed to take?
You've asked like 15 questions.
Okay, fine. So I'm just questioning it into two.
Yeah. You said, why are people not deliberate? Because I don't think we understand the weight of marriage. Many times, especially in this part of the world, it's just the next thing you do when you are of age.
Okay.
We go into it because my biological clock is ticking. I've graduated. There's nothing else to do. My mother is ready for me to. Do you understand all of those things? Because I think if we understand the weight of what marriage is and the picture that God, the responsibility in the picture that God is using us to draw. Marriage is God saying, go and represent me. If you understand the weight of that, you say, sir, how? And you sit down to be taught how. You get what I'm saying? And about how long it should be, it goes back to what I said about ideal. Because if your parents are teaching you about marriage, then you started from a young age. You started from when you could understand who mommy and daddy are. So even long before you know that you're going to get married, my mentor, Barrister Ocholi Okutepa, he said one day his son said to him, Daddy, I can't wait to marry so that I can love my wife the way you love mommy. Now, this son is currently like 11, and he said this like maybe more than 2 years ago. So he wasn't even 10. Are you telling me premarital counseling has not started? It has started. So, and the boy still has another 10 years at least before he gets married. And he has already enrolled in that life school of counseling, of premarital, picture, as it were. So I think that it is something that, if done ideally, starts from a very young age to paint the right picture, to put it before the child. And then as the child grows, you now become more intentional. And then, like you use the example of school, you go into school from the first day of class, you should pay attention, you should do all these things, but nothing stops you from intensifying when it's time for exam. So if you have done this whole lifelong process, when it's time for when it's 3 months to the wedding or 6 months to the wedding, you don't now have to start doing a crash course, but at the same time, you can be more deliberate. You can seek out. My husband and I have had couples that were about to get married and just decided, they picked a few couples which were among, and they just came to our house, sat down with us, asked us a few questions. That is a deliberate act that they took just before the wedding. So like you said, if we go to school to learn all of these things, to learn how to be a doctor, and then while you're a doctor, you even keep, that even leads me to the conversation of post-marital counseling, but that's not our topic, because it shouldn't end on the day of the wedding. Then we should be able to give even more attention to something as critical and as important as marriage. So I think you should start from as early as possible, whether or not you've met the person.
So there shouldn't be a cap on how long premarital counseling is supposed to take?
As a person, there shouldn't be a cap, but I understand that as an institution like the church, they want to say, okay, submit to counseling for 3 months or that makes sense. But you as an individual that understands the place of marriage and counseling, I think even before church gives you that, you should have already started some form of premarital mentorship and counseling on your own well before you even meet the person. If you just understand, like, this marriage is a big deal and I just want to see the right picture and do the right thing.
All right. That's interesting. Like that. Okay. So, I've heard you mention the first point of contact for counseling is the parent. That's what it ought to.
Yeah.
And you having mentors to guide you into all of these things, as well as having anyone assigned to you from your church as a counselor and all of that. So I just want to ask, outside your parents and outside the person you're assigned to, because I'm so sure that you don't have control over who is assigned to you during counseling in church and all of that. So, but for you, picking a mentor to guide you into marriage, are there any things we really need to look at or consider? I know you've mentioned something like you need to look for someone who is easily accessible to you, right? Which is something I find most interesting. That's because a lot of times you hear people say, I during my premarital counseling, I only met my counselor about twice or once. And then some people even tell you it's over the phone. The person is so busy. I like the fact that the person will be very accessible. But are there other things we need to look at to really make this thing worthwhile?
Yeah, so for sure. And I think that it's important for us as individuals to first know ourselves and have an idea of God's idea of marriage. So you know what to look for. You get? Because if you don't know what marriage is about, you look for any married couple. And not every married couple is doing what God requires of marriage. So have a basic idea of what marriage should look like, so that when you see it, you can recognize it. That's one. I think also understand your purpose as an individual. And then for those that have started to date somebody or you're in courtship with somebody, have an idea of your purpose as a family. Because, for example, and not that, now this one I'm about to say is not a hard rule. It's a flexible rule, but it's advisable in my opinion. If we're a couple that is going to be doing ministry, I should want to look for a couple that is doing ministry. Now, I may not find a couple that is doing ministry, but I may find a couple that also has a busy life. That's kind of sin. You understand what I'm saying? So first criteria is that they are living a godly marriage. Now, godly marriage is not perfect marriage.
Okay.
So because there is the tendency of see finish, especially with accessibility. So you go to your mentor's house or your counselor's house, and because they are being real and honest and true and open and transparent with you, they have an argument in front of you. And then you go back and say, hey, this is their marriage, except that they are arguing. No marriage is perfect. But you're looking for people that are striving to live a godly life.
So you don't even need to have a mindset first. You don't even need to have a mindset before going into all of these things.
What do you mean?
You don't even need to conceive a mindset of perfection in marriage for those people.
That's why I just even had to say that. Don't expect any couple that is trying to paint you a perfect picture. They are deceiving you. And when you enter marriage, your fall will be very hard because you'll not be wondering why your village people will not let you be. Because you're trying to attain to what isn't. But I'm saying that their marriage must be healthy and godly. And they should be striving for perfection. So that when they have disagreements, they handle it properly. So I think the first thing is to look out for a couple that is striving to do marriage God's way. That's the first thing. 2, a couple that is willing to walk this journey with you. Some couples are not willing to do it. They should be willing. If not, you understand. And then 3, advisable, in my opinion, that have similarities in purpose with you. It doesn't have to be similarity of, we are both business people, they are both business people. But it can just be similarity in, maybe one person travels a lot, or we're busy, or we're in ministry, those kinds of things that allow them to be able to pour in you a little more directly. Those are some of the things that I think it's important to look out for.
Interesting. So there's a whole lot of work that needs to go into all of this before even agreeing to get into it in the first place.
Yeah, and I think you don't have to have somebody before you start some form of counseling. Like I have said over and over again. It's a picture that you are beholding. There is informal education. There is unconscious education. Make it conscious. Make it informal and conscious. Be beholding. And then when the person comes, continue the journey together. And I think, let me just add this. When the person comes and you guys want to submit to a couple, I think it's also important in choosing that it's a couple that you both agree on. So even if you know about this couple from the bride, let the groom be on board. So that it's not a case of, and they're always supporting you because they are your people. Do you understand? Let it be that we have both chosen and agreed to work with these people. And so we are both accountable. Do you get what I'm saying? So whenever they give us backbones, nobody's offended. You are not saying that it's because, so I think that's also important to add.
All right. That's interesting. So I also know that the Holy Spirit, as believers, is one of our greatest instructor.
Yeah, for sure.
That guides us into all of these things.
Yeah.
Yet again, there's also the human factor, which is our responsibility to take care of. With that said, I like the way you articulated all of these things just to make a complete person or a complete counseling. And if these things are carefully followed, I believe that the perception or the narrative we have about marriage will definitely change.
For the better, yes.
Exactly. And then we'll have a lot of people wanting to go into marriage rather staying away from marriage.
Yes, sir.
Because many times when you have conversations with young people, they are all afraid of getting into marriage because of the fear of the unknown. That's not supposed to be a stray bullet. For viewers, this is where we call it a wrap for today. It has been an insightful conversation. We would love to continue.
Just one question, no answer. You've asked me 15 questions.
So our viewers will be seeing you same time next week. We want you to we want to progress with this conversation. we indulge you we rather request you to indulge this conversation by commenting on this platform. Send your questions. What are your myths? What are your misconceptions? What are the additions you want to add to what have been discussed today? We really look forward to having your questions and your comments on our platform. See you same time next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
I climb to the highest mountain.